Time now for Stanley's Stinkers, the only show that uses reverse prognostication to predict the losers in college football's biggest games. With this week's losers, here he is, Stanley Reese.
Well, the final rush for postseason positioning is on, and the 2013 college football season can still be friendly for some teams while it's destined to be a foe for others. For Stanley Stinkers, it's just been fun. We finished last week with a 16-4 mark, pulling our season average up to 78%. But considering the fact that we never back down for the big games, that's really not that bad. We use reverse prognostication to predict the losers in college football. With that said, here are the games we'll be watching this week. The Miami Hurricanes at the Duke Blue Devils. A few short weeks ago, the Stormy Ibis was feathering its nest with lofty accolades. But with 2 straight losses, it's a swan dive for the Tropical Birds. Meanwhile, the Durham Devils have been flying under the proverbial radar, reeling off 5 straight wins, including an upset against Virginia Tech. Miami quarterback Stephen Morris did not throw an interception at all last week. He'll have a hard time keeping it that way against Devon Edwards and that evil defense of Duke. This could be a signature win for the home team. Stanley Stinker in an upset, Miami. The Utah Utes at the Oregon Ducks. The Quackers suffered their annual setback last week with a loss at the Farm to Stanford. Oddly enough, Stanford's a team that this week's opponent, Utah, beat a month ago. But tribal magic may be needed in this one because Oregon still has one of the best offenses in the country, and the Utah defense has only made 2 interceptions all year. Look for a lot of points, especially for the home team. Stanley Stinker, Utah. The Florida Gators at the South Carolina Gamecocks. At the beginning of the year, the Swamp Lizards were expected to be in the chase for the division title and maybe even a chance to shine on the national stage. But after 4 straight losses, Florida fans are wondering if head coach Will Muschamp has been zooked. This week, former Gator head ball coach Steve Spurrier has got to be grinning as he puts his fearsome foul up against his old team with an outside chance at the division crown himself. With an offense that ranks near the bottom of the country, the Chomp will continue to get stomped. Stanley Stinker, Florida. Well, stay with us. We've got more games coming up, including an urban assault in Illinois, Mac Daddy versus the Man in Austin, and a possible upset in the loveliest village on the plains. Stay with us.
How to be a great dad in 15 seconds. Bike ride, go fish, walk in the park, phone call, milkshake, play catch, picnic, fly a kite, tell jokes, laugh, talk, read a story, tell a story, bumper car, swing set, bowling, pillow fight, cut loose, stay tight. Whew. Because the smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'd like to buy the world a coat and keep it company. That's the song I'd like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. I'd like to buy the world a coat.
The Texas Tech Red Raiders and the Baylor Bears in Arlington. The Red Rustlers are riding a 3-game losing streak as they mosey into Jerry's house for a showdown against the Bears. This rivalry dates back to 1929, and as of late, it's been Baylor with a winning hand. Art Briles and his hungry beast of an offense proved their place in the national standings a week ago with a win against Oklahoma, and this game could keep them moving on up. This is a rivalry, and anything can happen, but probably won't. Stanley Stinker, Texas Tech. The Ohio State Buckeyes at the Illinois Fighting Illini. Urban Meyer still has not lost a game since he stepped foot on the campus of Ohio State, and it doesn't look like that record will stop this week. Illinois has lost 5 games in a row, and their defense is near the bottom in the league. No matter who plays quarterback for the Tree Nuts this week, it's bound to be successful as the urban assault continues in a typical Buckeye blowout. Stanley Stinker, Illinois. The Syracuse Orange at the Florida State Seminoles. Redshirt freshman quarterback Jameis Winston has all but wrapped up his plea for a Heisman Trophy, and his River Chiefs are doing their best to convince the rest of the country they belong in the BCS title game. The season's not over. In the past, it's been road games that caused the annual FSU flop, but Syracuse does have the pass defense to cause a similar outcome at Doak Campbell Stadium this year. For Jimbo Fisher and his Warriors to lose now, it'd just about take a miracle. But that's why they play the game. Will the FSU flop continue? I doubt it. It'll be close, but Stanley stinkers. Syracuse. The Alabama Crimson Tide at the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Hail State quarterback Dak Prescott was a wrecking ball last week against the Aggies, rushing for 154 yards and passing for another 149. But that was against a defense that ranks next to last in the conference. This week, the sophomore signal caller has to step up his game against the tough Tide defense that's tops in the league. To say the Bullpups don't have a chance to win this game would be wrong. After all, they beat Alabama 17 times in the last 117 years. Stanley Stinker, Mississippi State. Well, it's time for another quick break, but don't go away. We've got the number one runner in the Big Ten versus the number one rushing defense, plus a bump in the road for the Gus Bus. Don't go away.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't seen your lap in months. And even more stuff. But still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
The Michigan State Spartans and the Nebraska Cornhuskers. This is a game that features the number one rusher in the Big Ten versus the number one rushing defense in the nation. The Shuckers of Mil Abdullah has more than 1,200 yards rushing for the year and averages 6.6 yards every time he takes a handoff. But the Green Soldiers have given up less than 400 yards on the ground all year. On average, a running back is gaining only 1.6 yards per rush against Michigan State. Something's got to give. If the home team can't run, they'll have to rely on a freshman quarterback who has more interceptions than touchdowns. Not a good ratio. Stanley Stinker, Nebraska. The Oklahoma State Cowboys at the Texas Longhorns in Arlington. Despite premature reports of his ejection, embattled coach Mack Brown remains at the head of the Texas cattle drive, and he's actually reeled off 6 straight wins since an early season slump. Now it gets serious. The Cowpokes coming to Jerry's house looking to brand the Steers and take over second place in the Big 12. Statistically, these two teams are close, but Oklahoma State has just 4 wins in almost 100 years against the Horns. Tradition, it's hard to beat. Stanley Stinker, Oklahoma State. The Georgia Bulldogs at the Auburn Tigers. The Gus Bus is full of fans who are heralding this team as a real contender for a possible SEC championship. But the Junkyard Dogs know all too well that hype doesn't win ball games. Preseason favorites by some to make it to the title game, UGA has imploded thanks to injuries. A successful season, though, could be salvaged with a win in this storied rivalry. Last week, Auburn threw the ball only 7 times, completing 3 passes to their own receivers and 1 to a defender. If Georgia can stop the run, they should be able to stop the bus. Stanley Stinker in an upset, Auburn. Well, while we're at it, here are a few more games we'll be watching. Iowa State will be spun by Oklahoma. Temple will be jousted by UCF. USC will lose to Stanford. Troy will fall to Ole Miss. Kentucky will be sunk by Vanderbilt. Maryland will be pecked by Virginia Tech. Northwestern will be tamed by Michigan. Houston will be caged by Louisville. Arizona State will be upset by Oregon State. And at Camp Randall Stadium, Indiana will be badgered by Wisconsin. Stanley Stinkers is a production of GMD Sports. It's intended for entertainment only. Any rebroadcast or republication of this program without the expressed written permission of me, Stanley Reese, it's appreciated. A free blog and complete podcast is always available online at stanleystinkers.com. Join us again next week. This is the most entertaining college football in America. We are Stanley Stinkers, and we use reverse prognostication to predict the losers in college football's biggest games.